Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today on increasing accuracy and efficiency with BAASS Time. All lines are currently on mute, and if you have any questions, please use the chat box and we'll address these during our Q&A period at the end of the presentation. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce Barti, who will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Remington. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. And again, on behalf of the BAASS team, I would like to thank each one of you for taking the time to attend this webinar. We understand that everyone's busy and you have a lot to do in a day's work, but we do appreciate that you've taken the time to attend this webinar. My name is Barti Mezuria, and my role with BAASS is to work with clients like yourselves to fill in the gap for any unique requirements that you may have as an organization. We've worked with different sectors, industry sectors, and we have bridged the gap that our clients have in their workflows and systems and bridge that gap in terms of the automation. So I'm excited to bring to you the work that we've done on BAASS Time. And this is an application that we have created at BAASS to fulfill our clients' unique requirements across various industries, including hospitality, construction, not-for-profit, and so forth. So with that, I'll go ahead and begin today's presentation. Our goal today with the BAASS Time solution is to share with you how we have helped a lot of companies and clients like yourself eliminate errors in their payroll calculation processes and freed up so much time, not just for the payroll team, but also created other benefits across the organization by putting this solution for the BAASS Time automation. And once you actually see the product and see what it can do, you'll appreciate how we have created benefits, not just for the payroll team, but also for the executive team, the HR team, and the employees themselves. We will start with a quick poll today on the question that you see on the screen, just so that we get some sense of what we have in terms of the audience and what you have. If you don't mind answering this quick question, how long does it take you or your payroll team to complete your employee time cards before you run your payroll today? We appreciate that everybody has different payroll frequencies, like weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, but just roughly, if you have an idea, we would appreciate you answering this quick question.
So we'll just give everyone a little more time to put in their answers, and then we'll show the results. Okay. So it looks like we have 31% saying 1 day, 54% saying 3 days, and 15% that don't know.
Thank you very much for taking that time. So that is interesting feedback. Now imagine if we cut down that time from days to probably just minutes. And truly, once you see the product, you will appreciate the fact that once we have the configuration right, once we have your business rules set up, it could literally take you minutes, if not less. If you have had any sort of, not necessarily direct role to play, but even some sort of connection with your team that does payroll calculations, I'm sure you can relate to their to-do list. So you have your employees that you need to pay every pay cycle. And in this scenario, you know, there are 1,200 time cards to prepare for weekly payroll, and that's a lot of time cards. You have to enter data manually in Sage 300 to create every time card and make sure that everything tied to the time that you've collected, such as overtime, such as union dues, such as statutory holiday pay, that it is calculated correctly and as per the local legislation. And then you have to make sure that the pay or that you're calculating for your employees is based on their work pattern or work schedule. So are they day shift employees? Are they night shift employees? Are they entitled to overtime? Are they entitled to state pay? So all these rules that you have to take into account, and then construct their time cards before you can calculate payroll. So I can appreciate the fact that from the poll that at least a day or more is spent by the team to prepare the time card, and that's what we hope to eliminate for you. So we came across a lot of situations, like I said, where our clients were doing a lot of manual work. We have clients who have employees across provinces. So the stat calculations, for example, for Alberta is very different from Ontario. And we found that our clients were calculating these in Excel and all manually. And when the legislations change, they have to go back to their Excel sheets, update the calculations, and then continue to do that manual work of creating time cards. So we created BAASS Time that will allow you to configure the rules around what your regular pay is, what your overtime pay is. If you have any special calculations such as union dues, you're able to put in your formulas. You're able to put in the formulas for your statutory holiday pay by province as well. And then you're able to break those rules down by the number of shifts, because you may be paying your employees different pay rates depending on the shifts and so forth. And also any peculiarities, such as, is the employee working in the office environment or production area, and your rates may be different depending on where you've worked. So we take all of these into account and help you configure BAASS Time in such a way that once it's configured, every time you have to generate time cards, it's a press of a button, you generate the time cards based on the rules that you've set up, and you're ready to calculate your payroll. So that's what BAASS Time is designed to do. So I will now switch to the product real quick and show you what I mean by the configuration aspects and how we are able to calculate the time cards in Sage 300. So this is my Sage, and as you can see, I have created a shortcut for BAASS Time within Sage 300. I'll go ahead and launch it. So BAASS Time can work for more than one Sage company. So if you're running multiple Sage companies, you're able to work with all the companies at the same time. Or if you have segregation where one person is responsible for one company and another person for the different companies, you're able to segregate this so that the user only sees what they are supposed to be working with at that time. In terms of the configuration, I had mentioned that with BAASS Time, what we let you do is, if you're using the Sage Payroll, you'll be familiar with the terminology class. And the class is just one example of a dimension that we use to differentiate the business rules. The other dimension could be province, could be your job title, could be different things. So in this example, I'm using the class which is set up in your employee profile in Sage 300. So what I'm saying here is, if I have a class of employees that are office, and what I mean by this is that they do office work, and if they work a day shift, then their hours of work are from 6 to 4 o'clock. And their regular hours are considered per day to be 8 hours, and they need to do a minimum of 40 hours a week. When I calculate payroll, I want to make sure that I use these earning codes for creating the time cards. So for the regular time, I'm using the day off. For the overtime, so it's a day office. For the overtime, I'm using overtime office. Double time, for calculation of double overtime, I'm using a different code, and so forth. So you can see that nothing is hard-coded here. If I had more earning codes and if I had more dimensions, I'm able to put in more values here. So if the office staff work at night and this is between such and such time, then anything that is generated for their regular time or overtime are going to be created in the time card with the appropriate earning codes. So that's just one piece of information. You can then go further and say, if I am working or if I have my team working on a day shift, then anything that is between anything that they work on a Monday, and if their daily hours, in this case 8 hours, are greater than the regular hours, then that's considered to be overtime. Similarly, I'm able to put in the rules so that when I have a weekend, then I say that anytime for the office staff, if they work on a weekend, then that's considered overtime. So I'm able to define not just at a high level what the thresholds are, but I'm able to go down a level and define the rules for each day of the week and for each class, because that's what I have selected to be my dimension to differentiate how I'm going to create my time cards. And in this case, you can see that based on the rule. So for example, if it is if it is office and it's Saturday, then I'm going to pay them overtime, which is the OT, and it's going to be recorded as overtime office staff. So when you look at the time card based on the hours of work, you will see that the hours are created under the correct earning code in Sage 300. So this is the one-time configuration, and every time the legislation changes, then you're able to come here, update your configuration, and you have it. You do not have to manually update the calculations in Sage 300. You just have to update the rules here, and that's all you have to do to make sure your timesheets are calculated correctly. One more aspect to the time cards is your stat pay holidays or statutory holidays. So out of the box, we provide you the ability to define your holidays by year, but we have clients who treat regular working days as holidays so for example, around the Christmas time, we see that some clients want to pay holiday pay on December 24th. And if that's the case, you are able to actually update this calendar and define December 24th to be a holiday. And that way, when you generate the time cards, BAASS Time will treat any time that is entered on December 24th as overtime or double time, depending on the rules that you set up in your shifts. So this is all the configuration aspects. And again, when we work with our clients, we configure this so that we can use the dimension that is most applicable to you as a client from your Sage 300. In this example, I have used the class and the shift. Once you've done your configuration of the business rules in BAASS Time, you are then able to enter your time. And with BAASS Time, we are able to track both scheduled time as well as the actual time of work. So what I mean by that is we have some clients, especially in the construction or production. We work with a lot of production companies like meat production, mainly food and other areas. They have a schedule so that they can say, I have this team who will do a day shift from such and such time and a night shift from such and such time to accommodate the workload they have. So we do have the capability, or BAASS Time has the capability to track employee schedules. And this is an example. you have the option, and this is completely integrated with Sage 300. I'm going to press F5 here, and what it does is it brings me the list of employees from my Sage. So when you add a new employee in Sage 300, BAASS Time recognizes them as an employee right away, and you're able to book or schedule time for that employee. And it's a real-time link, which means if you update the information in Sage 300, you see it updated right away in BAASS Time. So a couple of options you can have in terms of your schedule maintenance. You're able to select the employee like how I just did, and then you're able to manually punch in the time for what you want to schedule the employee for that week. Alternatively, you are able to import the time. So I'm just going to close this, and I apologize because of the GoToMeeting, my buttons are hidden here, but basically there are a couple of ways of bringing this information in. You're able to manually enter, or you're able to actually import from a file that you may be maintaining, or you're able to copy this for the coming weeks. So you have a number of options to create your employee schedules. So in a typical workflow where you are scheduling your employees, you have your employee schedule, and then you want to actually put in the actual time that the employee has worked that week. So now I'm going to show you the screen for entering or importing the actual time. So I'm going to go back to the week that I was working with. And I bring up my employees. And if you notice, there are certain times here that are highlighted in red. And what that means is whoever scheduled this employee wasn't scheduled to work these hours. So they defer from their actual scheduled time. Anything that you see in black is according to the schedule. So if a manager was reviewing this for approval, they can actually say, show me the schedule, and I'm going to compare that just visually as to why it's different. And right away here for John Rees, the scheduled time was 9 to 12. The scheduled time was 10 to 12, but the actual time was that the employee worked was 9 to 12:30. And again, there are various reports that you can generate for looking at the discrepancies, but this is just an example that we track, if you decide to do so, the employee scheduled time and the actual time of work. In terms of your time cards generation, the system uses your actual time, which is what you can either enter, or you're able to, from the screen here, I'm able to import the time from, like some of our clients use time punch system. So the employee comes to work in the morning, they are scheduled to work from 10 to 12. They either use their fingerprint or palm print or whatever mechanism they use to identify themselves. And the time punch machine recognizes that John Rees signed in at 9 o'clock in the morning. That information, what BAASS Time does is it takes it and brings it in a file, and then you're able to actually validate and import it into BAASS Time. So again, you have multiple options. You can either manually enter the actual time worked, or you can bring in from an Excel or a comma separated file. A lot of systems that we work with for time punch systems are able to generate these files, so you're able to import. And you also have one more option, which is to copy from previous week. So you may have done this and you go, nothing has changed from last week. I'm just going to go ahead and copy it from the previous weeks. So I can say, just for the week of July. For the week of July 30th, it's going to be the same as next week. Just go ahead and copy the time, and I will make changes as I need to. So again, multiple options to enter your actual time. So it's great. So what we just did was we looked at the configuration. We set up the schedule time for the employees. We brought in or we entered the actual time. And again, there are different ways you can bring your actual time. You can actually bring it from your time punch systems. You can import, or you can manually enter your punch in, punch out times. Once you've done that, what you want to do is now you want to tell Sage, okay, here's what my employees worked. This is my actual work of time. BAASS Time knows that John Rees works in Ontario. The Light works in Alberta maybe, but me as a payroll in charge, I don't want to go into the individual. I just want to press a button and say, calculate my time cards in Sage based on this time so I can pay these employees. That's my end goal as a payroll user. So that's exactly what you do. You go ahead and say, fine, I've seen the results. Now go ahead and create the time cards for me. And when I do that, I have a couple of options as a user. I can look at the screen and say, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. Or, you know what, I don't care. Let me just send the time cards to Sage and then I will validate. The one good thing about using the BAASS Time is that once I take the time cards from BAASS Time into Sage, if I print the reports and say, oh no, I forgot inserting the December 24th as a stat holiday and make sure that everybody gets paid stat pay for that day, what do? Do I have to delete my time cards manually? No. You basically come back and say, I made a mistake, I want to repeat the process. And what BAASS Time will do is it will delete your old time cards and it will just replace it with your new time cards. So until you calculate your payroll, this becomes a repeatable process for you. And that's another thing that we noticed with our payroll users is that they were spending a lot of time. They would go into Sage 300, they would enter the time cards, they would calculate the payroll, they would see the result and say, oh no, made a mistake, I need to go back. And then they would have to do manual corrections. With BAASS Time, you basically just come back and do the correction that you want and regenerate the time cards. In this example, I'm just seeing a preview of 4 employees and I'm ready to send this information to time cards. All I have to do is hit this upload button to say, yeah, I'm good. I'm just going to process the payroll for these 4 employees. I click upload, and the next thing I have is if I go to my Sage 300, if I go to my time card list, and BAASS Time creates all the time cards with a tag sys. So I'm going to go ahead and select sys and say, show me all the time cards that were created by the system. So I had 4 employees that were sort of previewed in BAASS Time with their detailed actual time in, time out, and it has created the time cards for me. And if I go into one of these employees, if I drill down, you can see that this matches what I had in my BAASS Time window, whereby I have per day what the hours are, and because this employee works in BC, I will have their stat pay holiday calculated based on the BC legislation, because that's BAASS Time knows that it needs this employee is from BC. If there was any overtime, then based on the rules that we configured in BAASS Time, it's going to create the appropriate overtime calculations. Once these time cards are done, so this is what the tedious part is actually doing the creating the time cards. After this, all the payroll team has to do is calculate the payroll and print the checks. So just to summarize again, going back to the BAASS Time application, what we did was we set up the rules, which was, in this case, we chose by class and by province, by shift. And then if you tracked your schedule time, that's great, you would enter them. But if you did not, you would just enter your actual time or bring in the actual time. And once you upload your data to Sage, it will automatically create the time cards for you. And that's why I say that we hope that from your time of creating your time cards, between 1 day and 3 days, we can cut down to minutes, because it's literally press a button and your time cards are created. And if you made a mistake, you go back to your BAASS time, make the corrections and repeat the process. It'll automatically delete and recreate the correct time cards for you. So at this point, what BAASS Time knows is it has captured your scheduled hours, it has captured your actual time, it has captured what was sent to Sage. And then there are numerous reports that I'll come to in a second. I'm just going to switch to the presentation for a second. So what you've just seen is the process of maintaining your scheduled time, entering your actual time, configuring your rules, and then sending that as time cards. But if your company wanted to extend the time entry to your employees so that they are able to enter time on their web browser or on their handheld device or any other device where the employee says, this is what I worked on today, we have an extension to BAASS Time and it has a web UI that looks as what I'm illustrating here, whereby the employee can say, I worked on such and such date from start time to end time. They can put in the description of the work they did. It'll identify themselves because based on their login, it'll know John Haley has signed in. So I'll just display the employee ID or name. And then if you are tracking the customer or the project or the task in Sage as to what work was done, the employee is able to tag their time to those dimensions as well. In this example, we're illustrating customer, project, and task, and they're able to save this. Once they save, this extension also has the workflow whereby the manager can go in and say, yes, I approve. John Haley did work 5 hours on this project on this day, approved. When they approve, that's when the time will hit in the payroll time card. Before it's approved, it will not go into the time card window. So we have this piece as well. This is optional. We find that some clients want their employees to enter time, and we find that some employees just prefer that they enter the actual time on their employees' behalf. So we have both options depending on your requirements. At this point, I want to share a real client success story with you. This was a huge success. We did automation for a client that is in restaurant business, and this client has close to 280 stores or outlets, and they have about now they have about 1,800 employees all over different states in the US. And you can imagine when they have to track the actual time and calculate the local and federal legislation and calculate the time cards, it was a huge amount of effort, a lot of labor involved, and it was an intense time for the payroll team to complete the payroll processing because they had to deal with the accuracy and make sure that all the rules were followed for calculating the time. At this point, I also want to mention that we have an enterprise solution called Manusonic, and we bring Manusonic when you have the need for your employees to punch in, do palm punching or fingerprint punching to capture the time. So in this scenario, we also used Manusonic. So what the client does is they do scheduling for the 1,800 employees, and then we bring time from the time collection system, and then we generate all sorts of variance reports for them to say, this store had 50 employees, they were scheduled to work so many hours, this is the actual time worked, and then we calculate the time cards based on what you saw, and we apply all the local as well as federal calculation rules such as overtime, union dues, and everything else, and we create the time cards in Sage 300. So it's a fully integrated end-to-end solution. The client has been using this for almost 8 to 9 years, and a huge success across the board, not just for the payroll team. So now we have a happy face here. We understand and we appreciate that payroll calculation times can be very stressful, again, because you have to collect the real or the actual time that the employee has worked, and then do everything else such as, you know, record, calculate the different earning codes, and then calculate the payroll. But now, once we help you configure your business rules in BAASS Time, as you saw, and this can be done based on your requirements, like we looked at how we use the class dimension and the shift dimension. In your case, you may be using, you know, different, like maybe work codes or different. If you're in construction, then maybe it's the type of work. So we can use any of the dimensions. And once we've configured the business rules, all you do is repeatedly say, okay, I have the time, calculate the time cards, and you calculate the payroll. So literally cutting down the time from days to minutes if you have your actual time accurately recorded. By bringing the BAASS Time solution, the end-to-end solution, we find that the executive team has benefited. They have had to or require less manpower or the same manpower with as the company grows. You know, they have not had to deal with adding more employees to the payroll team as they expand. So in the example that I referred earlier, you know, they grew from 1,200 employees to 1,800 employees, but the payroll team remained constant. They continue to be just the individuals that they started with 1,200 employees, and the same individuals continue to process employees for 1,800 and calculate payroll for 1,800 employees. So huge gain there for the executive team. We find that the HR team has benefited from this because they are able to go into BAASS Time and see that the payroll team is compliant. They are compliant to how the state pay is paid to the employees who work in Alberta, for example. They are compliant to how we are calculating overtime. So, you know, it's a confirmation for HR team and the comfort level that payroll team is compliant to different rules and regulations. What they are able to also see is the utilization. So how many employees do we have on board based on the actual time work? You know, what sort of trends are there on overtime? Is everybody fully utilized on weekdays? Why is there weekend work and things like that? And we've built these type of analytical reports as well from the information that we collect in BAASS Time. And obviously for the payroll team, it's a huge time reduction, but also, you know, a lot of stress is relieved because they don't have to wait or start the process way earlier. They can wait until all the employees complete their timesheets, the managers have approved, and for them, as long as nothing has changed in terms of the rules and regulations, all they have to do is press a button and the times cards are created in Sage 300. And most important of all, the employees, because they feel that their calculations are done accurately. They see that there are systematic processes and procedures in place, that there are rules that the payroll team is following to calculate their pay. So in our reporting side of things, we have actually created reports for employees where they are able to give to their team, if they decide to do so, any sort of backup to say, here's how we've calculated your overtime, and we have those detailed trails. We've had some clients use that, and again, we continue to build on the payroll reports as we get the feedback from our clients. Just before the questions, I do want to touch quickly on the reporting side of things that I've been talking about. So there are a ton of reports with regards to BAASS Time and payroll, and I just wanted to show you an example here. I'm just going to use the payroll register. It's a completely web-based reporting portal, and it's pulling data from Sage real time, and as we get feedback from our clients in terms of the reports they're looking for, we come to the reporting portal and add to it, like I said, and these reports include or they satisfy the requirement for the HR team, for the payroll team, and even for the management team. So here I have just a sample payroll register report, and if you're looking for a specific employee, you're able to simply drag. So this is very interactive. I'm just going to drag the employee on my header, and then I'm going to drag my check date beside it. So now what I have is I have this employee, and these are the different check dates, and I'm able to drill down into the details. Again, just one example of the payroll reports and the BAASS Time reports that we've created. And with this, like I said, we give different reports to HR team for trending, how our employees utilize, why is there more work done on the weekends versus the weekdays, to the management team in terms of what was my payroll cost for the month of January versus the month of June, why is there an increase? And every time we get a request for a new report, we simply come here and we add to it. And that's pulling data both from Sage 300 as well as BAASS Time. And the last point that I want to cover is the BAASS Marketplace. So what you just saw was our product called BAASS Time. This is something that we created based on our clients' ask, our experience, understanding what the challenges are for the payroll team. But we have a number of other products, and if you were curious to find out what else we have done in terms of fulfilling the gaps or meeting the unique requirements of our customers, then you can go to our website and go to the marketplace, and you are able to search for, depending on what you're looking for, not necessarily the product name, but if you're looking for integration or anything like that, you're able to find that. And then you would see that we have some literature. Sometimes we'll have a recording, features and whatnot. So, you are able to go to the marketplace and see what else we have in terms of the unique solutions that we've created. So with that, I will pause, and we will be happy to take any questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
So I do have a few questions here that have already come in, and if anyone else has any questions, just add them into the question or chat box. So the first question I have is, can BAASS Time integrate to my collection system?
So BAASS Time can integrate to any system. I am not familiar with that system, but I'm happy to follow up and confirm that for you. But there isn't been any system out there that we haven't been able to integrate. It may take a little bit of sort of more detailed discussion and understanding the my time, but yes, the answer would be technically we can have it integrated with BAASS Time.
The next question I have is, how long does it take to implement BAASS Time?
So we've seen, as you have seen, that once you configure your business rules, that's all there is to it, unless you have some special constraints that you want to abandon. So typical timeline is between 3 to 6 weeks maximum.
Is there a limit to the number of classes?
There is no limit to that's a very good question. There isn't any limit to the number of classes you can have.
Does BAASS Time calculate stat holidays for Alberta?
Interesting question. The answer is yes.
Can BAASS Time provide analytical reports?
So we have close to 50 and we are continuing to build more. Yes, we have a lot of analytical reports. We continue to build on the reports as we get feedback from our clients. And let's say we have 10 clients on BAASS Time. If there's one more client who comes and says, I'm looking for this type of report, as long as it's something that everybody will benefit, we will distribute that report to everybody, as long as there's nothing confidential, obviously. And yeah, we've collected some very good reports on analytics, trends, what ifs, and also employee related reports to make sure they have visibility in terms of how their pay was calculated.
We use time cards. How would that be integrated to BAASS Time? We need job numbers in our system.
So BAASS Time, we've done implementation of BAASS Time for clients that use project and job costing in Sage 300. BAASS Time can integrate to PJC. The only thing, like I talked about the dimensions, in my demo, I had enabled the class and the shift as a dimension. All we have to do is enable the project as a dimension, and then when you create the time cards, we would create the project job costing time card as well and tag the project for that time. Also, in terms of the repeatable process, we would absolutely be able to do that process with PJC in place as well.
And the person who asked that question also added on that their time cards come from their field workers.
So,
can we extend the data to employees if we decide to do so?
The answer is yes. So the reason we made our reporting portal web is because we didn't want you to be restricted in the Sage 300 world to run the reports. So, your executive team may not be using Sage, but they want to use the reports to look at the dashboards and see the trends of their payroll cost. They can simply log into our reporting portal and see what the payroll cost trend is. And if you wanted to extend that to your employees, you would do the same thing. You would create them as users on the portal. They would log in and they would only see their information. So their pay slip, their T4 and things like that.
And the last question I have here is, can this handle piece rates?
The answer is yes. We've worked with clients who have had their earning codes defined with piece rate calculation, and we are able to handle that.
Okay, so with that being all the questions that we have for today, I'd like to thank everyone again for taking the time out of their busy days to attend, as well as Bart T for presenting today. Everyone who has registered will be receiving a recording of the webinar via email, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.